Hello, everyone. This is Joseph Stephen Skoda, past District 33 Director of Toastmasters International, Central Coast and Central Valley of California, and it's been a great ride. Even though I'm not longer in the trio, it's been pretty exciting about the things I learned and how my growth has happened, the people I got to meet and network. Now, you can see my shirt right here. It's DAV, Disabled American Veterans. I'm not wearing my American Legion shirt. I'm not wearing my Toastmaster shirt. I just want to share that what I've learned going through the leadership in Toastmasters has helped me grow in other aspects of my life. Believe it or not, there's a life outside of Toastmasters, and we all need to find it. Now, thanks to that, I'm in the trio of the Department of California for the Disabled American Veterans, where I'm now part of a team of 70,000 people. Not the 3,000 of District 33, but 70,000 people. But it all started right here when I became a president of a club, when I became club growth director, so forth and so on. And it's so wonderful. And Tam and Vanessa and I, we all just came back from Nashville, Tennessee, where we had our Toastmaster International Convention, the first one in person in the last couple of years due to obvious circumstances, but it was great. We got to see some friends we haven't seen in a long time. We got to see people that we thought we were like the best of friends because of Zoom, and still rubbing elbows, shaking hands and hugs like the first time. It was a great experience. Right now, I want to recognize Tam Pham. He's our program quality director of District 33. We appreciate you, Tam. And he actually works on Port Hueneme out there in Oxnard on the naval base. But also, there's a special recognition I want to acknowledge also. Joel Chawla, he lives in Thailand right now, but he is our most recent distinguished Toastmaster. So I want to give a shout out to Joel. From my home club, South County Presenters, Joel is our latest DTM and very proud of that. Vanessa, the love of my life, was our past Division D director not too long ago, like 2 months. And we're all doing different things in leadership. So we're all leaders, whether in Toastmasters or outside of Toastmasters. And that's what's exciting. I wanted to welcome Lou to come talk to us today because of people like him, it's helped my career grow in different areas outside of Toastmasters. I'm able to earn a little extra income, get some other things on the side going on, speaking abilities, and other people like him who've moved up their chain in Toastmasters, and they open up opportunities. So this is all about opportunities that we learn and grow in this organization and outside, and more importantly, how we reach out to others and lift them up and help them along their own journey. So I want to introduce Louis Camassa, who, believe it or not, did not invent the Long Island iced tea. Even though he's from Long Island, New York, we love his accent and what he's done for me and so many of our friends and what he's done for the organization and our community. So please help me give a warm welcome to Louis Camassa. It's all yours, Lou.
I remember this so vividly. The gun was pointed a few inches from the center of my forehead, and it was small. It was maybe a .22 caliber. Time had slowed. Fight or flight had kicked in. And I remember looking around and I could see everything in my peripheral vision clearly. A couple of people eating pizza at one of the tables behind a plate glass window. My friends were a few feet from me, wide-eyed and scared. And it was late, maybe 1 a.m. As I was walking out of this restaurant, I saw this kid staring me down. And I walked over to his car and said, "Hey, what's up? Do you know me or something?" And then a few snappy seconds later, I found myself in this precarious situation. This was obviously a pivotal moment in my life, one that has decades later shaped who I am and who I'm striving to become. It's also a poignant reminder of how conversations can go sideways so quickly when you don't care about yourself or others. And what I saw in this kid's eyes is that he didn't care if he pulled the trigger. I didn't care if he pulled the trigger. More on that later. I've used this experience and others to change how I interact with others, how I lead others. today, I'm going to distill some of the learnings into this presentation. It's empathetic leadership in an apathetic world. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Awesome. So technology is amazing. I've been working in the cutting edge of communication for the last 20 years, my entire career, everything from email messaging to text messaging to e-commerce to affiliate marketing and social media and beyond. And I love it. Technology has given me a lot of great benefits of my life. And as much as technology has benefited others, like making it easy for us to connect with others, it's also reduced our ability to care for others. And a great example of that is social media. And I like to think of social media as right now as it's being used as a mirror. And we use it to see ourselves as we are and maybe as we want to be. And for many, social media is about me, it's about me, and it's about me. We care about how many likes we get, how many views did our post get, how many comments are made. And what that's all about is caring about whether people viewed and liked and interacted with your post. It's about what you're posting and what others are saying about what you're posting. It really limits our ability to see what others are feeling and how we're really caring for others, because it's very superficial. So right now we have this social validation scorecard where we assume the more we have, the more we matter, right? And that's wrong. It's not valid. It's not, that scorecard doesn't really make sense in the real world. And I think what social media has done in this technology sense has magnified our obsession of ourselves, and it's weakened our emotional connection to others. Again, in the majority here of how it's being used. So bottom line is there's a true lack of caring for others through this technology, abstract social media. Now, social media is just a tool like anything else. It can also be used for good. Like we can use it to develop deep caring. Like anything, it requires effort. And a great example of this in caring for others through social media is I was sitting on a school bus many, many years ago, elementary school. And I remember sitting there next to my friend, and my friend asked me, "Hey, do you know Tim? He's a great kid, really funny, got to meet him." And later introduced me to him, and he was a really funny kid. And although we didn't become friends, we went to elementary school together and went to high school together. And eventually, we parted ways, and I never kept in touch with him. Again, we weren't deep friends, and I really didn't know what was going on in his life until I saw a post on social media maybe a month or two ago. And in that post, his brother had made it. He was in a car accident. And that post was about a GoFundMe that was helping his family deal with this trauma that he experienced. He was in a coma. They weren't sure if he was going to make it. And he was just married. He had a new baby girl. And it was just heartbreaking. Even though I wasn't friends with him. I didn't know him. I haven't seen him in 20 years. It still was something that affected me. And partly because I could really empathize with his situation. And I was thinking, I put myself into his shoes, and what if that were me with my daughter that's 2.5 years old, with my wife? How would that affect people around me? And that helped me really realize, and as selfish as this may sound, it's helped me realize how his situation was, how his family was dealing with his situation by putting myself into his shoes and thinking how I would feel in that situation, my family would feel in that situation. And that's what I think is really important, is it's being able to get a glimpse of the situation from that person's perspective. And to do that, we need to put ourselves into it. So bottom line is, over the years, I've learned that empathy and in these life-threatening situations and maybe less volatile ones can have a tremendous impact on creating positive outcomes. And this is especially true for business and in leadership. And this is a really wonderful quote from Deepak Krishnan about, he's an educator in Mumbai, but what he talks about is how empathy is innate among humans, but oftentimes it takes this really immersive real life experience to bring it to the surface. And more importantly, he talks about how the world needs more of these business leaders that have this sort of empathy, people with the courage and the ability to fight battles on behalf of the weak, to really get into the shoes of others, understand where they're coming from, and be able to defend and help propel those ideas. And that's what I think leadership is about, being able to make those tough decisions and to lead when others are too scared to. So what I've learned is empathy, overall, it's about creating curiosity. It's about creating employee loyalty and trust. And research has shown, and this is pretty much consistently across the board, is that when you develop this feeling of warmth and this positive type of relationship with your employees, you're going to have greater loyalty from that employee than an increase in their paycheck. Let me say that again. When you develop this great atmosphere of possibility, this great feeling of warmth, and develop this positive relationship, that'll have a more profound effect on that employee's loyalty than how much money you pay them. So unfortunately for me, it took multiple real life experiences for me to really understand how my lack of empathy affected others, and especially in a workplace. One of the key examples is the time I discovered a mutiny in the office. And this is a really sad story that started from when I moved here from New York. And in New York, sarcasm is king. I mean, it's just the way we interact with others is through sarcasm. And as a new manager, I was leading a team of people. I used sarcasm with employees. And this one employee that I had, he was really quiet, introverted, but super intelligent software engineer. I remember one day he pulled up on his motorbike. He was late for a meeting, and I see the motorbike pull in, and I could see a whole bunch of fluids leaking from it. It looked like the tire wasn't aligned properly, and it looked like it was barely drivable. But he pulled in, he got into the office, ran in, and said, "Hey, I'm sorry for being late. Sorry, motorcycle problems." I said, "Well, maybe if you fix your motorcycle, you'd be on time." And again, just a quick, sarcastic remark. And I was kidding, of course, but he nodded, and I thought we were good, and we went about our meeting. And bottom line is, he was anything but good. You see, my sarcastic remarks cut him so deeply that he really couldn't stand working with me. And I hadn't had a lot of experience dealing with passive aggressiveness, meaning in New York, like, everyone's pretty good at expressing how they feel, sometimes with like these colorful superlatives. And he never pushed back or had anything bad to say to me. He just went around his day and did his work. But I learned later on that he had plenty of things to say to others. And he was dropping these negative remarks into the source code of our platform, into the comment section. And he also tried to form a mutiny by going to others on the team to have me ousted. And he was trying to build support for having me fired because my sarcastic remarks, I cut him so deeply there. But fortunately for me, the others didn't agree. And eventually he left the company. But I didn't treat that person right. And I never had the chance to apologize because we never spoke again. So had I known now what I know now, if I'd known then, I would have seen this quiet engineer struggling to get by. He didn't have enough money for a new motorbike. He didn't have enough money to fix the one he had. And he was a guy that worked hard for us. He put in long hours. He always went above and beyond to stay ahead of the curve in our technology platform. And my sarcasm was really hurting, even though I couldn't see it. And he never showed it. But I could have looked for the signs. I could have put myself into his shoes and tried to understand who he was, what motivated him, and more importantly, what he stood for. And what I would have seen is I would have seen a person who was creative, intelligent, and he was really striving to be respected. So I think some of you might be thinking, like, who cares, right? This is business, it's rational, there shouldn't be emotions, you can't walk on eggshells. And this is all true. And that's what business was 40, 50, 60 years ago. But what we've learned now is, and this has been true then, is that businesses are made up of people. And more importantly, is people are emotional. And as my mentor used to say, is that you have to get through people's emotions to get into their mind. And what that means is that when we interact with others, it causes an emotional response, whether it be positive, negative, or indifference. And I love this quote by the late, great Maya Angelou. She said that people will forget what you said, they might forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And whether that be a positive or negative feeling, this is profound and it sticks with people forever. So bottom line on this is that our emotions influence our decisions. And there's a reason why emotions are so important in business and also as a leader, why they should have a closer examination. So if you look at like sales leaders like Zig Ziglar, he used to say that people buy on emotions, justify with logic, which again, that's been, neuroscience has proved that true. Overall, is what we do is we make decisions and then we use our emotions to guide us in that decision-making process. So there's been tremendous amounts of study on this. One that I really enjoyed reading about, which is really interesting and quite a great case study on this, is they had a patient who had a tumor on the frontal lobe of his brain. And they had an operation to remove that tumor. Post-operation, they went in, they measured his IQ, they ran a whole bunch of cognitive tests, and he passes them all with flying colors. No issues whatsoever. It was a really huge success, that operation. Though later on, they learned that the patient struggled to make simple decisions. For instance, he didn't know what to order for lunch. He had a menu and there's a whole bunch of options. He couldn't make a decision. He didn't know where to park his car. He'd be driving around and he couldn't decide on where to park it. He couldn't decide on what radio station to listen to. Simple daily decisions like that were impossible for him. So in his diagnosis, what they learned is that he lost his ability to feel. And his apathy made it impossible for him to make decisions. And even though cognitively and rationally he was functioning 100%, because of that lack of emotions and feeling, he was unable to make these simple decisions. So if you think about emotions playing a critical part in decision making, the next question, how can we manage our emotions, and how can we manage the emotions of those around us to make better decisions? So another nursery rhyme that's growing up, my daughter, these old nursery rhymes I hear, but this one really strikes me as painful to listen to and see. It's, sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And this couldn't be more wrong. Now, I've trained in mixed martial arts for many years. I've been in fights, got my nose broken, I've sprained stuff, I've had bruised ribs, shattered teeth, being knocked around in the cage, and you get beat up. And I was also in competitive weightlifting for many, many years, and I put my body under tremendous amounts of physical stress and lifting heavy weights, and so much so I blew out my hip. So I know a little bit about pain, and I could say that all that physical pain, it pales in comparison to the hateful things that others have said to me. And although I don't remember like all the scrapes and bruises and all the bruises and issues that I've had and all the damage over my body, those details all elude me, is I could tell you the exact moment of when my CEO said to me, my opinion didn't matter because I never done anything important. We were sitting in an executive meeting. We had about 6 or 7 other executives in that meeting. And my CEO and I got into a heated debate on a solution for a project we were working on. And I remember he was adamant about his position. I was adamant about ours. And it was a cordial debate. The tension was rising, but things were professional. And then he got so frustrated, he said that thing to me, that my opinion didn't matter because I never did anything important. And I'm very, very rarely ever taken back or speechless. But at that point I was, not only because what he said, but because everybody else in that room that heard him say it. And those things that he said, they hurt me so deeply, I would never forget it. And it still comes up every once in a while. I still remember him. Whenever I see him, I just think of that. Despite all the good things that he said to me, all the good things he's done for me, I still can't forget what he said. And that's always how I'll remember him. Words matter. What we say in email, text, whether it be a social media message, a comment, those things matter. So I want you to think back a little bit on some of your memories. Maybe you can remember a few cases where someone said something hurtful to you, or maybe a few cases where you said something hurtful to someone else. And I'm sure each of us have scenarios where we can relate to that. And I hope it's okay if I go off script a little bit. If anybody has a case where they'd like to share where someone said something hurtful for them, I'd love to give an opportunity for them to speak. If you want to raise your hand. Well, yeah, go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Twyla, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I remember being a smaller child in the back seat, riding in my parents' car, and my mother and father and my aunt were sitting in the front seat. And I was a little kid sitting in the back seat, just singing away. And my aunt turned around and told me to shut up because I couldn't sing. I still do not sing to this day. Probably a good thing, but still, the words that imprinted in my mind that my aunt did not consider me singable.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry you experienced that. I think you should sing whenever you want. Tam, go ahead.
This came from my older sister, who was always right because she's the oldest person in my family. She told me a long time ago that my lifelong dream to be the president of the United States of America was impossible because I was born in another country. And when I was a little kindergartner or first grader, I was like devastated. I just didn't know. I was like, oh my goodness, I wanted to do something special. And here you go. Like she tells me the truth. She tells me I didn't know if it was truth or not, but I had to believe her. And now I think I'm kind of making that up in Toastmasters. I'm trying to apply my leadership skills and being a good example by being a role model.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. And you have 2 years if you want to make president, 2 years to prepare. Vanessa.
I have something, it's very simple. However, someone once told me, so what? And whenever I hear those words now, I immediately shut down because it struck me so hard that someone would say, so what, to a comment that I had uttered out loud when I was a shy, bashful person. And for someone to say, so what, when it took a lot of courage for me to say what I had to say, whenever I hear so what, simple as those 2 words are, that's immediately shuts me down.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing it. I think there's a common thread here. Yes.
I do have an opportunity to sing. I'm on standby at my church. If there's ever a fire, I sing and everybody will evacuate immediately. So I do have that opportunity to sing someday.
Sing and dance, Twyla. I think Brittany has her hand up.
Sorry, Brittany, go ahead.
I want to say something. In Toastmasters, I believe that Toastmasters is a great organization to develop my communication and leadership skills. And the only person, because I'm a president at one of my local club that I'm in Bakersfield, which is Soul Masters, and I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to become to be a better leader in Toastmasters, and I'm also serving a VP of membership. I'm sorry, VP of Public Relations, Secretary, and I'm also the area director. And this is why Toastmasters has helped me a lot to develop leadership and communication skills. And I've been in Toastmaster for almost 9 years.
Wow.
And it'll be 10 years next year in November. And that's all I have right now.
Well, thank you for sharing, Brittany, and thank you everyone for sharing really powerful stories. And the common thread is it didn't take much to sear that memory, that negative memory into your mind. It didn't take much for that person to say what they said. And that's why it's so important that we be mindful of what we say to others, not just verbally and here on meetings, but also in text and messages and other forms of communication. Because what happens is bad memories are easier to remember than positive ones. What we hear, what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we feel, all of these inputs, these sensory inputs, they create memories. And I remember early in my career, I was hiring a new associate project manager. And this was an entry-level position, so we only had a few candidates. And one of the candidates was recommended by another coworker. So I thought, hey, this sounds good. Let me give him a call. And I spoke to him a little bit on the phone. He sounded very professional. He wrote really great emails, very detailed. And so I scheduled an in-person meeting with him later in the week. Meeting day comes, I wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, no show. And basically the whole day goes by, he never shows up. Later that day, he emails me, and it's a long email. He was apologizing he couldn't make the meeting. And the reason why he couldn't make the meeting was because he was borrowing his mother's car and her windshield wipers didn't work. Now, I live in California where we get rain maybe 4 or 5 times a year. And he said there was a slight chance it might rain and he didn't feel safe driving the car. Now, a few things went through my mind, but the bottom line was this position required transportation. He didn't have any. So I replied back, I said, hey, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you for applying, but I don't think you're a good fit as a candidate for this role. Next day, I get another long email from him, and he was very, very upset. He had told me how he had gone out with his mother to buy a new shirt, new shoes for the appointment, and he was all set to go. And he went on and on, a whole bunch of other details. I don't remember, but what I do remember at the very bottom, he said that, I hope you die. I hope you die, at the bottom of the email. And I remember I was sitting at my desk, and I remember double clicking on the email to open it. And I remember reading that, and this immense sense of dread weighing me down and thinking, is this a joke? Is this for real? Like, what's going on here? And I don't remember the exact wording of the email. I don't remember all the details of our conversation. This is close to 20 years ago. But I remember him saying, I hope you die. And the other thing I remember too is that I never regret not hiring. So point being here is that memories trigger these emotions. Even telling that story now, I still have that feeling of dread. Memories trigger these emotions in us, whether they be positive or negative. And essentially the way this boils down is we take in this input, sensory, whether we're hearing it, seeing it, again, feeling it, tasting it, smelling it, and then that generates a memory. And then that memory can activate an emotion. And sometimes the emotion is positive, sometimes it's negative, sometimes there's no emotion at all, it's indifference. So I bet everyone on this webinar has some kind of memory associated and with some kind of emotion associated with that memory of this image. And whether that's a positive, negative, or indifference, I know each one of you has this. So the way I see this is emotions are a platform for communicating and understanding with others, and words are the foundation. Beyond that, we can get into sight, visuals, image representation, we can get into sense and echoic memory and other things. But bottom line is words, what we say, what we write, have a profound impact on others, just like the examples that you all shared. So I'd like to show this clip here. Give me a thumbs up if you could see this and hear it. Everyone hear that?
It's a low volume.
That's kind of the way it works. I was below average. So cool. So you're probably ultimately rank somewhere around there, so really you're going to sell a lot of things, just not this. I don't want you to have shoes all around all day. All right? Good. Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even more. All right? You got a dream. You got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.
So you want something, go get it, period. That script there is powerful because he started out with these negative remarks and then followed up with something positive. And life isn't a 2-minute clip, right? Typically, we can't give a single speech or a presentation or have a meeting with somebody or do a webinar and have this kind of profound positive impact. It really, for all of us, it happens over time. It's the short water cooler conversations. It's the late night work session. Maybe it's a quick Slack message or a longer email, or maybe it's a Zoom call. All these small touch points, they add up, but it only takes that one negative remark to tear someone down. So how do we positively influence others? What can we do to make people feel good and not make them feel bad? This is where empathy comes into play. We can deploy empathy to better understand others. So after years of competitive weightlifting, high impact sports, I've done enough damage that my left hip needs to be replaced. I'm in constant chronic pain. And I've been like this for years now, where this injury is just debilitating. And it's hard for me to do certain things like I could do before. But what it has given me, it's given me the ability to relate to others. You see, before this chronic pain, I really couldn't identify with others who had some similar issues. For instance, my brother-in-law, he would always complain about his back pain, and I would shrug it off because, hey, you want to come to the gym? No, my back hurts, I can't do it. And I always thought to myself, hey, that wouldn't stop me from working out. Like, what's wrong with him? You got to man up, go big or go home. Like, that was my attitude. And it took me living my own reality to really be able to see his as real. And we can't wait for these experiences to happen to us to be able to relate to others, but we can try to put ourselves into their shoes and try to see things from their perspective. And the way to do that is through empathetic listening. So essentially, I'm going to go through some of these 4 levels of listening. This is based upon coursework from the Presencing Institute, and it's centered in MIT. So essentially, the first level of listening is called downloading. And this is basically someone's talking to you, and you're automatically taking that in, you're making assumptions, you're comparing what they say to what you know, and then you're generating these judgments and opinions based upon what you think you know, what they're saying. So this example here is like, hey, I can't make it to the gym. If I were downloading when somebody said that to me, I would think this guy's given up. That's what I think I know and how I think I know of him. The next example is factual. So this is where you're accepting what they're saying without assumptions. And here is you're looking for differences in what you think you're hearing and what you think they're saying. And the example here is if I might ask him beyond, he can't make it to the gym, I might go to the next level and say, hey, why can't you make it to the gym? And he might say, I'm not feeling well. So now I'm taking that fact in and I'm downloading that, but I'm also open to what issues he might have. So that's the next level up. After that, we get into my opinion, the most important one is empathetic listening. And this is where you're really feeling what they're saying. So you're trying to walk in their shoes. And the extension of this example is beyond just asking him why he can't make the gym. And he says, I'm not feeling well today. I might ask him, why aren't you feeling well? And he might say, hey, I threw out my back and I can't walk. I can't even stand. And that's where I could put myself in the shoes of, wow, he must be in a lot of pain. Like, yeah, he definitely can't make the gym. And now I can relate and I can have that empathetic listening in place. The fourth one, I wasn't going to show this one because this is like next level listening, but this is generative listening. So what this is about thinking about how you can help your friend overcome this situation. This is about future vision casting. And what you might do beyond just empathize with him now is your solution based. You're looking at, well, what can we do to get him out of this? Have you gone to a chiropractor? Have you gone to see a doctor? I like to think of this as like a coach. I recently hired a fitness coach. And when I hired him 6 months ago, my body fat was about 25%, a lot bigger than I am now. And I was looking to cut weight, tone up a little bit. And I hired him not because his great experience, he's been doing this for years, he's done a lot of great transformation for others, but because of what he saw in me, my potential. And that's what he said, is, hey, you have the potential, you lose this weight, like you're gonna look amazing, you'll feel great. So this vision of what I could be in the future if I followed his plan. And that's what this generative listening is about. It's about listening and then understanding empathetically, and then being able to think future vision-wise of where you can go from there. And that's high level, again, generative listening is next level listening. If we stick in the third level listening, which is empathetic, like that's a huge milestone. And that's where I recommend everyone start from. And if you're not already there, that's where you can always grow from. But that's a key area on how we could better empathize with others. There's a few other tools that I'll throw in on this that I've learned over the years. One is that you could reflect what others say to you. And this is by either repeating what they're saying, or you could rephrase it. And the way I like to do this is keep it open-ended. You don't want to go into problem-solving mode. So as I remember an example of when I was going to college, I worked in a library as a media specialist. And essentially what I did is I dropped off equipment to the different classrooms and cafeterias and wherever they were holding the presentation. It might be a TV, a projector, 8mm film rim, film rail, or maybe a microphone. And this one event that we had was in the cafeteria. There was 50 or 60 executives that were going to be there. And it was all decked out with chairs, nice tablecloths, food. And I remember the leader that was overseeing this, I remember running, he was running around. You can see he's going from pillar to post, like sweating, like all stressed out. And I went up to him, I said, hey, is everything okay? What's going on? And then he goes down this laundry list of, I got to do this, I got to check on that. This tissue didn't show up. And I could see he was stressed out. He wasn't even looking me in the eyes, looking all around and eyeballing everybody. And then I asked him, I said, well, how do you feel? He goes, oh, I'm really stressed out. I said, okay, well, is there anything I can do to help? And then that's when he stopped looking around. He looked at me and said, yeah, you know what? Maybe you could help with getting this client list updated to make sure we have all the right people here. And that moment, you can see this great weight just dropped from his shoulders, and he exhaled. And it was because I acknowledged his feelings, and then I made him feel like he wasn't alone in this. He had people that would help him. And I remember after that, he tried to give me like a $20 tip. I was like, no, I can't take that. But that's how much I helped him, is that he felt the value there. And that's what this is about. It's about reflecting what others say to you and thinking about how they're feeling. And this ties a little bit into how you can also probe for those feelings behind those words. And what you want to do here is validate your understanding of what they're saying. So many, many years ago, again, early in my career, I had an office space, open office space. We had about 7 to 10 of our team members working there. One of the team members and I were in this heated debate on how to solve a technology problem. And it quickly went from a heated debate into an argument. He got really irate, really disconnected from the conversation. And at this point, I had to put the brakes on. I said, listen, why don't we go outside? Why don't we talk about this? It's not something we want to do in front of the whole team because everyone's looking and it's disrupted the entire workforce. We went outside, and this is where I asked him, what's going on? I understand your position, but why are you so adamantly arguing this? And then he explained how his solution was the best and how mine wasn't, and went on. And I said, I get that, but there's something else going on here. Why are you getting worked up? What's really bothering you? And I asked a few different ways, and eventually, I could see this weight come off his shoulders, and he deflated. And he explained that, and he had to think about this. He explained that when he was a child growing up, he had an older sister and his parents, and they never listened to him. They would never hear him out. He never had any input, or he wasn't able to constructively input his suggestions to the family. And he always had a fight, and he always had to argue to get his words heard. And I triggered that in him in that debate. I triggered the parental or the older sister, and he went into argument mode. So because I probed for those feelings, I understood where he was coming from. And then we actually wound up hugging it out. And then I related to him. I said, hey, I'm sorry that happened. And let's try to, in the future, head that off and go about it a different way. So probe for those feelings behind the words. It's usually more than just what they're saying. There's some kind of emotion there, or some kind of legacy artifact from their past that's coming up. The next one is paying attention to body language. This one is challenging, especially in a virtual world. But one of my peers at work does a really amazing job at this. He's phenomenal at reading body language through Zoom video, because we're all remote. We're not seeing each other in person. He's able to do this on video. And what he does a great job of scanning through the video feed and reading people as we're chatting. This one time we were in a meeting, we had about 10 or 12 or so of our team members in the meeting, and everybody was throwing out solutions to a problem. And there was one person that he saw was getting visibly upset. They weren't speaking up, they weren't commenting, they didn't raise their hand. He could just see from their face that they were upset and that something was going on. So we paused and said, hey, what's going on? Do you have something to share? And then sure enough, that person spoke up and had this great solution that nobody else had thought of. But for whatever reason, he just didn't feel comfortable sharing. And he was able to catch that. And if he hadn't paid attention to that person's body language, that person never would have brought up that solution, and that problem probably wouldn't have gotten solved as quickly as it did. So body language is key. Open-ended questions. This is key for showing interest in their perspective, and it also softens a direct approach. So rather than just going in there and trying to get the direct answer that you want, it's usually better to ask an open-ended question. And I've been guilty of this many times. Again, when I was a leader, I was thrust into being a leader early in my career. I didn't really know what I was doing. We'd have these status update meetings where the whole team would go through and tell me what they're working on. And I would just drill them. Why aren't the projects done? Why is it late? What's stopping you? Why aren't you working harder? And I would go on and grill them in front of others. And what I realized is that that was not the way to do things. That direct approach was not appreciated, and also it stressed everybody out. So now I ask, instead of when's the, why isn't it done, is I ask them how the project's going. What kind of update do you have? And then that lets them explain where things are at. And at that point, they say, hey, I didn't get the project done because I had all these meetings yesterday that interfered with the project time. And now it's them giving the solutions, giving the answers. So what that helps me do is learn where things are at and where we might be able to add assistance without having to directly put them on the spot. Slow down and take a deep breath to calm yourself. If you're feeling attacked, if you're feeling threatened, maybe you're absorbing someone else's tension in a situation. If you could slow down your emotional reactions to others in these situations, that can help you better empathize with them. And it also keeps you from making negative, off-the-cuff remarks. So the experience I had in another meeting, this was an in-person meeting in office. It was about 10 to 15 of our engineers and executive staff. And the VP of engineering at the time, this was his third or fourth week missing the same deadlines. So week after week, deadlines were being missed. And I remember sitting there and the vein in my head was just popping. I just couldn't hear this guy give another reason and excuse why the deadlines weren't being met. And I was just boiling with tension. And unfortunately, I let that blow up and I said some things that were hurtful. And unfortunately, it tarnished that relationship. If I would have taken a deep breath, calmed down, I could have controlled those emotions, maybe funneled them into a more productive way. So being able to slow down, take a deep breath to calm yourself in these situations, avoid some of the negative repercussions of saying things you wish you hadn't. Avoiding snap judgments. Empathy is about seeing people as always changing and evolving. It's about not immediately jumping to conclusions and shutting that person down based upon maybe past experiences with them, or maybe things that you think you know about the current situation, but you're making assumptions. So it's really easy to make assumptions based on what someone says without really deeply understanding. And then last one is learning from the past. This one is very challenging. It's about being aware of your biases and your own prejudices and being able to avoid jumping to conclusions. Because when you have your own filters on, you're not able to truly listen to others because you got your filters blocking things out. Like that example where my brother-in-law had the back injury. I had my own filters, what back injury? Just go to the gym and work through it. That was my filter. I wasn't able to really listen to him. So this leads to these incorrect analysis of what they're saying. And also it's without being aware of your biases, you're not able to truly understand where they're coming from because you're putting your own filters on. So a good tactic here in learning from your past is being able to use cognitive reframing. So think of this as like a camera. And in that camera, we're able to zoom in, zoom out, we can rewind. And that's what we want to do in these situations, past situations, where you can go back to some of these situations that we shared and others, is you could zoom out and you can see yourself and you can see that person. You can read the body language, you can see the interactions, how you're responding, how they're responding. And this gives you a great outside perspective. And then you can zoom in to see all the details in the body language, facial expressions, and the tone and vocality. But ultimately, what you want to do here is you want to evaluate the reality based upon that input, rather than how you felt during that dialogue. So if you could zoom out, if you could reframe it and look at it from an objective standpoint, it might help you in understanding that situation a little better. And more importantly, it's helping you train your brain for next time you get into that situation. You can zoom out while you're in it live, and then hopefully gain greater perspective. So that'll help you benefit from a calmer and a less emotionally intense and exhausting experience. So takeaway for this is empathy can be developed. It's coming from somebody that really had zero empathy early in life and has made it my career to have greater depth of empathy. And it's just like any other skill, any other thing you want to learn, it just requires time and constant practice. Now keep in mind, everyone's different and we all have our own triggers and things that inspire us and motivate us. But I always say, pat yourself on the back for just trying to understand other people, even when you fail and you have bad situations, which I am still guilty of. And then on being held at gunpoint, luckily the situation de-escalated very quickly. And I don't think it was anything but luck. I look back on the situation now and I understand that the person holding that gun, he was scared, he was confused, and he felt pressured into a situation that I had instigated. And I don't think he wanted it to end badly. And to his credit, after some posturing, he put the gun away and he drove off. And I forgive him. And more importantly, though, is I forgive myself for having started the situation. So think of this, walk away with focusing on reducing the negative. It's baby steps, just like my new diet I went on. I just didn't switch over 180 degrees to a new diet. I slowly eliminated things like soda, chips, and cookies and made baby steps in progress to aligning myself to healthier items. Same thing here, just focus on reducing the negative things that are said in conversation, and you'll introduce this level of empathy, and that'll hopefully reduce the number of hurtful things that are said and make the world a much better place. Joseph, back to you.
Sure. Hey, thank you very much, Lou. And I know you live in San Luis Obispo. Hey, great place, a great county for nothing else. You touched on something that touched on me, and I didn't know this a whole lot until a couple of years ago. Emotional intelligence. What are our triggers? Why does someone don't want to work out at the gym because of whatever, or someone be offended because they didn't have a say-so? And things I didn't know before, even though I have so many degrees in education. I think I'm so smart, but often I miss the simple things. And I would thanks to Toastmasters got me involved. I got to do some training outside of this organization, some other things, but it was in San Luis Obispo the first time where I got to question myself on emotional intelligence. Why do I get upset with certain things? What are my triggers? Why do I get mad if you don't stand up for the national anthem, for instance, being a veteran? Those are some of the things that bother me even today. But I think it's so important that we recognize that they are triggers. So we all have different triggers, like you said, and not get so mad and upset at those that do that to us. But how do you find a way to let others know, hey, bro, back off. I'm trying to understand. Please talk to me. And how can we work through this a little bit better? What are some of your tips there?
Yeah, I think it comes down to putting yourself into their shoes. So you have someone who doesn't stand for the national anthem, and that might trigger you and get you frustrated and upset, having fought for our country and served our country. And what I would do is I would try to put myself in their shoes. Why aren't they standing? What's stopping them from standing? What feelings are they going through? And maybe helping to develop that understanding might give you greater perspective. And I'm sure there's a reason, and there might be a powerful reason. That's what I try to do. Is the other day I was driving to the grocery store and I got stuck behind this really, really slow driver. And I'm like, wow, what's going on? I wasn't tailgating, but I was getting frustrated. Around, do I wait? What do I do? And eventually the car turned off and I saw it. It was a little old lady, like my grandma's age. And I was like, okay, that's I get that. And it's just empathizing. Like, we don't know who's in that car. Could be a grandmother, could be a mother, could be somebody driving their wife to the hospital because they're having a baby, right? Like, we don't know the situation. So before we jump to conclusions and make those snap judgments, like, we need to put ourselves into their shoes and see who that is and who they are.
That's a real good point. Real good point. It's hard to do though. It's really hard to do, especially with someone
Practice.
driving slow. Vanessa gets mad at me like, I don't care their age. There's a speed limit. How come everyone's going too slow and not using their signals? And that's always going to be a challenge for me. Well, any other Q&A for Lou tonight? There's a lot of smart people here. All right, Vanessa.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First and foremost, thank you for a wonderful presentation. And I hope that we have permission to use your slides and that the recording incorporates that. And I hope that you will come back to a bigger audience because I think that we need to hear what you just said today. So that's one. And two, I'm going to play the devil's advocate for a minute and say that empathy many times can be seen as weakness. And what I've been prone to do is instead of being empathetic or sympathetic to somebody else's plight, I man up and say, for instance, instead of passing $1 off to the person that obviously is homeless, I rationalize that for myself and say, this person that I'm going to give my money to is probably the same person that broke into my car. And so it makes it okay for me not to be nice and not to be kind and not to be empathetic or even sympathetic to what's going on with somebody else. And I found myself being that way more times than not.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, a great example is my daughter. She got nipped by a dog. The dog ran up to her, nipped her, and now every time she sees a dog, she's deathly scared of it. But that's putting her own biases onto a situation. And there's a certain amount of fear that she has now, but every dog's not going to bite her. And just like every homeless person or a person asking for money isn't going to break into cars. So that's where we have to separate. And having empathy isn't about being kind. Having empathy is about understanding others. What you do at that point, that's up to you, whether you be kind or not. It's about putting yourself in their shoes and then making a decision based upon how you feel. So empathy does not mean kindness, does not mean weakness. It just gives you a greater strength and greater leverage on understanding the situation.
Thank you for that. I have just one more thought. And I noticed what you said about memories and how they become a part of our past, or memories make up our past. Well, my mom's going through Alzheimer's right now, and I had this startling come to awakenness, if that's such a thing, when my mom, who is in the throes of Alzheimer's, was talking to me about my weight gain. And I come from a household of skinny people, 7, and I was the fat one all the time growing up. So when my mom mentioned my weight during the course of a conversation, I said, Mom, you know, it hurts my feelings when you said something about my weight. However, that doesn't matter about who I am. I'm still the same person. And I don't see my mom that frequently, but I had the opportunity to see her about 3 weeks ago. And this is what my mom said to me. Oh, you're so skinny. I haven't lost 1 pound. But through her Alzheimer's, my mom was still my mom and realized that she had hurt my feelings by mentioning this weight gain. And so I thought, wow, that's a breakthrough. I wonder if there's something that I can do to get through to my mom so she won't dwell on the past. And more than that, I don't want to become my mom and stay stuck in the past, the negative past that she stays stuck in. So thank you so much for your presentation. It brings these things back to the forefront of my mind.
Yeah,
And I
it's a great
appreciate it.
example. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And it's a horrible, horrible disease. I've had multiple grandparents struggle with that and pass away due to Alzheimer's and dementia. And yeah, our memories are everything. Without that, we really lose our self-identity. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. I'm sorry you have to go through that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Vanessa has mom and dad who are both 92 years old or young this year. And they're at different levels of different things, but they're both 92 and still kicking, still sharing. But with that being said, Brittany, what else do you have, Brittany?
Thank you, Joseph. Louis, first of all, I have a couple things. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this great presentation. We all learn from this presentation, and then we can spread. We can only share a presentation and present it to local clubs and some other organizations like that. And I like to invite you to come to to join the meeting via Zoom on Monday via Zoom if you wanted to join. And then also when you talk speaking of you talking about the negative, about have the negative thoughts. The only person that talks negative is my father. He always say that he wants to say, and then my mom was mad at him for saying that, for being so negative and stuff. And he always does it. He does it sometime, and I think that's that's why I want to encourage him to be positive. Be positive. But my dad said, I'm not negative, and my mom said, yes, you did. Yes, you did. You're talking you're being so negative. And that reminds me, so this presentation helps me a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting, Brittany, how even the people that love us the most, they're the ones that hurt us the most.
That's
And
right.
they don't understand why, or we don't understand why. Mostly goes back to our childhood, but often they're trying to encourage us to do better and tear us down at the same time. It's really tough. But before we let Louis go, any other quick questions? We appreciate everyone here. I want to invite Louis. Of course, I met him at Toastmasters a few years ago. I want to know a little bit more about how it's helped out his career. But do you have anything, Shamima, by any chance?
Hi, my name is Shamima. I'm very new here, joined the Toastmaster, and I'm learning. I'm enjoying a lot. So today, Twyla told me to join this one. I'm really enjoying. It was like mind-blowing presentation. I just wanted to hear more. That's like I didn't talk, but yeah, hopefully in the future meeting I'll talk more. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk.
I love that, Shamima. Thank you so much. And let's hear from our latest DTM, our newest DTM, Joel, who lives in Thailand, by the way.
Toastmaster members, I find that to interact, I've gained a great deal by doing step 4 and 5 and 6 in the 12-step program. That is involving other people as well. So when we communicate a message, but we only know what the message was registered by the other person if there's a response. And we can learn from that response and find our character defects, because we all have character defects. So if we don't deal with our character defects, they stay with us and they haunt us. But when we try to address our character defects and work on them, it takes time, and it takes two or more to help you grow out of that. The first step is to identify this. The subsequent is to find a game plan of how to improve on that defect. Back to you.
Thank you so much for that, Joel. Many of you know I started this series called Get More Out of Toastmasters. The first month I became a Media Past District 33 director. And the whole idea was to develop this program where people would say, wow, I can do that. I want to join leadership. I want to be area director. I want to be division director or even a club president. And those things are exciting. It's helped me in my career in the long run. Now, not all of them, I think everyone here's, almost everyone here has been at least an area director, if not above. But I know all of us have found leadership opportunities outside of Toastmasters. And sometimes we're voluntold, sometimes we volunteer, sometimes someone says, I see something in you. I think you'd be great at this. And we're suckers and we take it in and say, yes, you're right, I will be great at this. But more often than not, we fail unless we have a good support system, good training, and regular motivation. So that's what's so great about this. Get more out of Toastmasters. We continue to do this throughout the next year or so. We're always looking for a different twist. Those that work up district leadership and those that took a different path and became successful because of what they learned and the networking that they've done and other circumstances that just made their lives a little bit better. And that's why I want to mix it up a little bit today with Louis. So Louis, any last minute parting thoughts before we let you go?
It wasn't explicitly mentioned in the presentation, but Toastmasters has given me a tremendous amount of confidence and skills in communicating with others and improving my leadership through not only engaging in these conversations and these webinars in person, but also just meeting people in person. I'm an introvert. I really don't like going out and meeting people. I don't like talking to people, but getting into Toastmasters helped me get out of my shell and introduce me to others and give me that confidence. I started going to social mixers for chamber, and I got involved in a whole bunch of other organizations, and I can tie that all back to Toastmasters and the support I got there. So, thank you.
I get that. I'm going to a Chamber of Commerce mixer next week. It is what it is, but it's networking, it's getting out of our shell, and table topics helps a lot with that. Well, thank you so much, Louis. We deeply appreciate you. You didn't talk about wiffle ball. I know you've got so many titles in wiffle ball. Talked about weightlifting, you talked about losing weight. A little bit about wiffle ball. Most of us don't even know what that is.
Yeah, pickleball. Yeah.
Pickleball. See, I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Next time.
All right.
Thank you all.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This will be on our District 33 YouTube page, probably the next few days. Please look forward to this and go back to the ones we've done in the past year or so. And please register for the future ones. We're always looking for input. We're always looking for a way to reach out and help one another reach that next level. Anyways, this is past District 33 Director, Joseph Skoda. Over and out. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, guys. Bye, Joseph. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Great meeting.